As advocates, you can sometimes feel like you're competing with one another around different agendas, and I wonder if you all have any thoughts about the confluence between domestic agendas of social justice and the global agenda for social justice, and how we might create a more solidarity in our efforts and in our articulation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, first of all, I think that we as a country, our founding principles were really built upon activism, right? And yet the American people embody the spirit of activism, though I think historically, institutionally, America has always been very reluctant towards accepting activism. In fact, we've kind of tried to drive out activism as much as we can. And not just at home, but also overseas. You know, if anything, I feel that I and MuslimGirl.com are a direct product of this huge problem that we as Americans have, and that I feel like it's time for us that we finally own up to it if we actually are committed towards advancing women and girls and global good, which is our issue with American exceptionalism, right? We have activism going on right here at home. I see it in the Black Lives Matter movement, and we try to stamp it out, or a lot of things get lost in translation about what the tenets of it are. I see it, I personally was victimized by that stamping out indirectly through our policies in the war on terror and the way that we've kind of spoken on behalf of so many people around the world. I think that if we are going to be involved internationally, America absolutely has a mission, it absolutely has a responsibility to provide resources and empower communities around the world that need it. And I say that because, as Americans, we actually are responsible for a lot of those problems too, right? And we do have to own up to it. One thing that I think for Muslim women specifically is really crucial when it comes to activism is the fact that a lot of these policies have kind of steamrolled over what our needs actually are, or what our desires actually are. We saw it in Afghanistan, right? First Lady Laura Bush gave an iconic speech in a radio address in 2001, where she positioned herself at the forefront of women's empowerment for, I'm sure, really remarkable reasons and great intentions. But in that radio address, I recall it because I was a child when I heard it, but I recall her using words like uncivilized and barbaric when talking about Afghanistan. And in doing so, regardless of the intentions, we completely forgot about the activism of Afghan women on the ground that was taking place. Yesterday, President Trump gave a speech, basically saying that the Middle East is a place where people should flock to, and that Iraq is a beacon of modern civilization and things like that. But we don't talk about the fact that we literally bombed that region, right, and caused a lot of those problems to happen. And for MuslimGirl.com, part of the reason why we created the platform is because we were hoping that by cultivating a presence for our voice in the Western media, and especially for people like me, I'm a Jersey girl, I'm born and raised in New Jersey, on the beaches here, that we can prevent that from happening, right? If we cultivate a strong presence, especially as American Muslim women, and how these policies and issues impact us, then it would be impossible for our voices to get stamped out like that again. And that maybe in the long run, we'd actually be able to impact those policies both domestically and abroad to the communities overseas.
And I would just say, I think, Michelle, in some ways, the responsibility always has to come with listening first.
Absolutely.
And so I think it is tremendously important when kind of you ask about solidarity, is that we have to listen to one another, because kind of when I talk about kind of women's health or kind of girls' education, that may not mean the same thing to someone else talking about women's health or girls' education. And certainly if I am kind of wanting to help advance that around the world, we have to first listen to what people kind of think really are those right answers.